I'm actually going to, oh, let's make sure we're on mute, please. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Madison. Madison, do you want to introduce yourself? Sounds like we have some cool slides to go over right at the very beginning, some more about the Dynamics user group.
Yes, definitely so. Well, thank you, Ryan. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Madison Zulowitz, and I'm the event coordinator here with DUG. So I help run our local and regional meetup program, and kind of all other things DUG. We're a pretty small company, so it's kind of all hands on deck sometimes. So I'm here just to give you a quick introduction as to who DUG is and what all we offer. So DUG is a free community for users, implementers, and resellers of Microsoft business applications. We mainly support Microsoft Dynamics 365, GP, Power Platform, and we hope to give you a community where you can grow and excel in your personal and professional careers. Our rules of engagement, essentially we ask that these meetups are held to be solely educational. So please no sales pitches. We want everybody to be able to come into these meetups and gain some educational content, some networking. We also encourage you to ask questions. I'm sure that Ryan will kind of comment on this too, but either save your questions for the end. It sounds like we're gonna have a Q&A, or add them into the chat. Our speakers love it when you ask questions. You're going to get more out of these meetups the more questions that you ask. Dynamics User Group, or DUG for short, we have multiple different programs. So we have a free online open forum discussion platform where you can ask any question that you might need help answering, and the community will help answer. We have local meetups like this one, and for our virtual local meetups, they get posted to our YouTube channel. So if you're ever curious about what other meetup groups around the world are talking about, feel free to check out our YouTube channel. It's completely free to watch these. We have our conferences. We have our DynamicsCon conference coming up, which I'll go over in a little bit. We have a team up program, a skill up program. So pretty much anything that you're interested in related to Dynamics 365, I'm sure that we offer it. We also have our 2025 DynamicsCon regionals coming up shortly. So these are a little bit larger in scope than our local meetups like this one. They're usually full day events. They typically include breakfast, lunch, and a social hour. So lots of great networking. We have multiple different breakout rooms, all focusing on different Microsoft products. So great way to gain educational content. They're usually a full day to 2 days, depending on the location. These are our North America locations. So we're going to Canada, we're going to Denver, Ohio, Texas, and Tampa, Florida. So I know we have some Clay County folks in here. I think Tampa would probably be the closest one to you. But these are really great events. We are also going international, which I'm super excited about. We're going to Kenya and Ghana and Copenhagen, Denmark this year. So super excited. And we also have our 2025 DynamicsCon event. So this is our largest conference of the year. This is coming up on May 13th to the 16th of 2025. This is a multi-day conference. We have lots of great educational content. I think we have over 250 speakers, over 350 sessions. So really, really great content, lots of networking opportunities, great way to get involved in the community. I'm sure a lot of you on the call have been to DynamicsCons in the past, but it's coming up soon. So if you're interested in getting a ticket, we do have a 15% off coupon code for all of our meetup members. So you can use that code meetup15, and I'll also send it in the chat. But if you guys have any questions about anything DynamicsCon, anything DUG related, feel free to just send me a Teams message, and I'd be happy to help you. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Ryan to talk about Clay County.
Thank you. And Madison, and for those of us who are your DUG leaders for DUG4GOV, we have been collaborating in the background of like, hey, what's important to government here as well. So there will be government focused tracks or things that are going to be related to government. So if you have that ability to be able to head up to Chi-Town, join the Dynamics user group community up there to go through all of these different types of workshops and presentations. It is a great connection event. And even if you can't make the Chi-Town one, Madison, is there ways there where they could even, view some of this remotely, or is this all going to be in person?
Unfortunately, it is all in person.
Yeah.
but we do have a lot of our local meetups that are actually using DynamicsCon speakers to be a part of their virtual local meetup after DynamicsCon. So if you missed a presentation that you really wanted to see and you're not able to make it to Chicago, I'd highly suggest checking out our YouTube channel, because it might be that there's a local meetup that's presenting that same presentation.
And ironically enough, with that YouTube channel, not only for the Dynamics user group, but even today's recording for DUG4GOV, that'll be on YouTube as well, won't it?
Yes, definitely. So they always get posted on the meetup page. I posted in the comment section of the specific event, as well as the discussion page on your meetup platform. So you can always find the link there. They're posted shortly after each of your local meetups. So, and if you ever need help finding it, just feel free to reach out to me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madison, so much. Appreciate it. And now, Kenneth, Devin, if you want to share your screen, we are ready for you, sir. Kenneth is, yeah, I got introduced to Kenneth from one of my account executives. Now, I am what's called a technical specialist here at Microsoft. I fall into the what's called the SMC space, in other words, the small medium corporate space of Microsoft. So I work specifically with cities and counties across the entire U.S., servicing all of our account executives who hold that Microsoft relationship with our government customers. And I had put a call out just like, hey, who's doing some really cool things here with the Power Platform? And one of my account executives, Joel, came back and said, hey, you got to meet this guy, Kenneth. And now, Kenneth, you and I have been talking back and forth off and on for the last couple of months. And it's such a pleasure to, A, have met you, but B, the story of how you got to DUG4GOV is a little bit of a roundabout story. If I recall correctly from our conversations, there's a lot of folks across the entire U.S. that don't know that DUG4GOV exists. And Kenneth, you happen to be one of them, correct?
No, yeah, that's correct. Our local government got into the Power Apps and Power BI world back in 2018, and at the time when we were just getting into it, we kind of our rep back at the time were looking for some type of user group, local or whatever, and there was nothing that we could find. So we ended up, and I'm still a part of, the Australian user group for government, Warren Dean's group. He's been around for over 10 years. What's unique about Australia as compared to the United States? In the United States, we have the federal, the state, and then down to the local individual city and counties. Their territories in Australia mimic the United States local government, and they're all the same, and they're all pretty much standardized. So all of Australia is a Power App, Power BI shop, and they all interchange applications and analytics. They have countrywide analytics and so forth. So I've actually been a part of that group since 2018, and it was just here recently after some license changes in the county where Ryan got introduced to me.
And the rest is history, they say.
Yep, it is.
So, yeah, for those who are either watching this recording later on, or if you're on this call live, share with a friend, because the more folks that understand that it isn't just like IT that needs to be looking at the Power Platform or even Dynamics. There's use cases that have impact across the business wide, and we're going to be talking about one of those today, specifically around vehicle inspections. So now, Kenneth, keep me honest here. This was originally for fire, correct? But, as you and I discussed, it could be law enforcement, it could be public works, it could, kind of grow beyond, because I think about even some of my former job of, having to do vehicle inspections. It was such a laborious, labor intensive thing that took quite a bit of time. And it sounds like that you've developed something to help cut some of that time and also help with some of that tracking. Is that a good lead out to where you want to go today?
Yeah, no, that's correct. We actually built out the framework around this based on the fact that we intended to roll it out to any county or city vehicle within Clay County. Now, keep in mind that the fire rescue side, as I'll show here shortly, is more intensive. Fire rescue's been doing daily 100-point vehicle inspections since probably the 1970s. Usually on paper, usually on laminated cards. It's only been the past 10 years that software has started to surface that could actually take this over. So the law enforcement side is not quite as intensive, and then when you get to regular county vehicles, it's even less. But you'll see that when I show the application, because even within fire rescue, there's a difference between the inspection on a fire engine or ladder truck and a chief's SUV. So that's we did build it out to make it to where it was across all disciplines, but it was primarily to fix some issues within the fire rescue department.
And granted, yes, my measly squad car is no comparison to a fire apparatus that has more equipment and bells and whistles on it, literally, than a squad car. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. Where would you like to start, Kenneth?
Okay. Just a little quick about myself. I'm kind of a hybrid, and this usually comes up in no matter whether I present internally or externally. This July, I will finish my 42nd year in the fire service. Started back in 1983, RN paramedic. Did my first 28 years with the city of Jacksonville, which you'll see here in a slide perspective where that is. When I retired there in 2011, they had 59 fire stations. They now have 80. They have well over 150,000 runs a year. And that's just to put it in perspective about what we did here in the county just below Jacksonville, which is Clay County. I've been back with Clay the past 9 years. I actually started out here in the 80s and then went to Jacksonville. I came back to Clay primarily to help them with their fire service technology. They had about 15 different public safety applications they needed managed. 6 of them I'd already previously managed for Jacksonville and the state of Florida. And then I also, over those years, had developed additional skills in SQL programming, Crystal, SSRS, and then in 2018, our CIO at the time decided he wanted to make us a Power App and Power BI shop. So I'm 6 years new to the Power App, Power BI venue. So just a little bit of introduction and history behind how we ended up to this application. Like I mentioned earlier, well over 20 years prior to 2018, the department was doing paper or laminated copy 100-point vehicle inspections every single day. The frontline apparatus are on the street 24 hours a day, and the shifts would do that inspection every single day. Now that created some redundant issues because, like Ryan described in his example, the papers would get put somewhere once a week. A chief officer would pick them up and take them to headquarters, where they would make it to some file cabinet, and God help them if they needed to go try to retrieve anything off of it. The other side of that was if a issue came up, a repair, an immediate, a safety issue, then that paper process had to stop. Phone calls had to be made, emails had to be made, and then somebody at some level, either fire administration or county fleet, would have to open a work order ticket in the fleet system. So there was just a big disconnect. There were also disconnects related to fuel and mileage tracking, which I'll cover here just in a minute. And then the biggest one is no data is being stored in a database that can be used for analysis or trends. And that was probably the single biggest thing that got us to talking about this in 2018 was the department had gotten 2 new fire engines the year prior. The years prior to that, they got 4 new engines. So they had 4 engines that were of one type in year and 2 that were newer of another type. And the hypothesis is those fire engines, for some reason, were going through breaks more than any other fire engine they ever had. Well, that's great, but where's the proof? Where's the data? Show me how much this unit was out of service or in service. Show me how many times it got repairs or maintenance. What was the mileage? What did the daily checks show? Were they reporting anything? And to get those kind of answers, they would have had to go back through paper forms and try to see what was going on. So that was just some of the reasons why we decided to whiteboard this and let this be our kickoff project into the Power App world. Now, just a little history behind Clay. We serve over 232,000 residents in 2023, covering 644 square miles. You see there's a little cutouts just below Jacksonville, Florida, commonly referred to as the First Coast area of Florida. Within the Clay County Fire Rescue call volume in 2024, they had over 49,000 calls for service from their fire rescue dispatch center. The primary 911 center got over 100,000 calls. Of those 49,000, just under 24,000 were 911 emergency calls. And the result of those two were over 30,000 dispatch calls for emergency service. And that resulted in over 67,000 unit responses. And I'll go ahead and answer this now because I always get this question, why the disparity? Well, so many of the responses needed 2 or more apparatus. That's why there were so many more responses than dispatches. Station-wise, in Clay County, there's 13 county and 1 municipal career stations that comprise 34 frontline staffed apparatus that we're getting inspected every single day. Everything from fire engines and ladders to rescue units, tenders, or sometimes called tankers in parts of the United States, and chief and supervisor vehicles. Personnel and shift, just under 300 personnel comprising over 3 different shifts. So you break that up across the stations and you've got literally anywhere from 30 to 50 different people doing inspections every single day on different types of apparatus. So you throw the human element in and you're doing it on paper, that even makes for even more inconsistencies, which led us to this decision.
And I was going to say that's Kenneth, that's actually a very important part there. When you think about the number of staff on a daily basis that would be doing inspections, there's real time involved in doing the inspections, and then the process that follows thereafter. So as we start thinking about, how the rest of, this presentation is going to go, I was hoping the audience could also keep that in mind as we're thinking about cost savings and time savings, because all of our governments are always being asked to do more with less. So if we're looking at ways of helping efficiencies and driving some of the, that true impact, that it might make someone's job easier to be able to do an inspection like this, cut off some of the time, and then have true data telemetry, as Kenneth was mentioning, that's an important one to call out. Sorry to interrupt, Kenneth, but yeah, I just wanted to make that quick point. That's amazing.
No, and to even tag off of that, from an efficiency standpoint, if you've got an issue going on with an apparatus and it's being documented on paper and there's not some system that can track it, trend off it, throw it into analytics, or even alert appropriate people about it, then that issue that maybe could take 5 minutes and a mechanic to fix on site today, 2-3 weeks from now, puts the unit out of service, takes them an hour to swap all the equipment off of one frontline fire engine to another. Well, guess what? That unit is not available for emergency calls the entire time it's down. So that means maybe someone's life isn't saved, maybe someone's house burns down. So there's a bigger picture from the fire service to the efficiencies. So we wanted an app for the firefighters to enter data via their cellular smart devices. That was another hurdle we had to overcome. It's not like other workforces. The county doesn't give every firefighter a county cell phone. So we have Panasonic Toughbooks with detachable screens in the front. We now even had one in the front, one in the back, and we've also now given them iPads this past year because a lot of the software that they use, including PowerApps, works better on the iPad and it's more cost efficient. We then had to address the issue, and it's really big here in Florida, with using personal devices. So we can't tell an employee to use a personal device. However, because there is a Power App available, because it's similar to the way they log on to the web Outlook email from their personal phone, we were able to grant those who wanted to use the inspection on their personal phone. They didn't want to take the tablet out of the truck. They can also do that. So we were able to navigate the legal side of that. Improved mileage tracking and vehicle documentation. One of the hurdles, not just our county has, but others do, the fuel systems are 20 plus years old. And when you're dealing with emergency services, you have minimal locations for fuel because the county can't afford on the taxpayer dollar to put a gas station in every fire district. So, and also when they go to get fuel, you can't turn them down if a number doesn't add up right. So if they put in their mileage and someone messed up the mileage the day before, you can't say, oh no, I'm sorry, no gas. So that resulted in inaccurate mileages, inaccurate maintenance, and so forth. Um, then on top of it, because you can't have a gas station in every fire district, there are some areas that had to use not personal credit cards, but county credit cards at regular fuel stations. And there's no way to get really the data from that, only the financial data. So this was going to help numerous ways because we were going to be tracking mileage every single day, every single shift. Real-time issue tracking. Now you'll see in the app where it pushes the data right to the fleet maintenance and streamlines some steps. If there's an immediate repair issue or a safety issue, before the crew is even done submitting the application for the inspection, it has sent an email alerting chief officers, supervisors, mechanics, and other people who wanted to be notified of that issue. Before, they'd have to finish the inspection and make a phone call, do an email. Now, literally, those mechanics and supervisors are calling them before they could even finish the inspection. So that has streamlined that. Also, just one that allowed us to expand and contract. As you'll see, a supervisor vehicle, similar to a police officer vehicle, doesn't have the same level of equipment as others. So we wanted a way to be able to create modules and questions within those modules. And I'll show you an example of that as we continue on. Talked about the increased mileage accuracy, trending issues with apparatus. We talked about that related to the brakes. We've been able to track if we've got a rising issue, even identified an issue in an area of the county because of road maintenance that was causing increased out of service time and cost on the fire apparatus because of this application. Accountability is the big one. Now with having inspection data in a database, we can trigger automated reports to go out at 10 o'clock every morning because they should have the inspection done by 10 o'clock every morning. And it sends a list out to the chiefs of who hasn't done their inspection. And then just the public works and the maintenance shop, just with the mileage, they've been able to schedule preventative maintenance in a better schedule, more efficiently, and keep the out of service time down. Some future enhancements just specific to this app. I'll talk about some others at the end. They've asked us for a way that the fire service mechanics can document repairs back into the system. So they want that two-way communication, not just the one-way. So we're looking at that. Also, there's specific specialty tools on the fire apparatus that are governed by the National Fire Protection Association and have their own independent inspection forms, like the air packs, the self-contained breathing apparatus that they wear, has a daily checklist that's an entire page long. We're going to build that out into this application. And then they've also asked us for that direct interface into, there's two softwares out there. One's called PubWorks, one's called CityWorks. They're the two most common maintenance and fleet softwares that are used across the US. We're currently using PubWorks, and they would like us to push our data directly into PubWorks. So we're going to begin working next year with that software vendor. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a look at the admin application that we built. We built two sides to this. One for our admin and our logistics and mechanic staff to be able to maintain the application. So this initial screen here allows them to manage vehicles and units, and I'll explain the difference between that. It's pretty much standard across the United States. Also the different vehicle types like engines and ladders and so forth. The items, that breakdown of the modules I was talking about. And then also, what are the normal assignments? You know, engine 2 is using public safety 111 and so forth. That's how they track who is using what vehicle. So the vehicle type name, we built out all of the most common vehicle types at the time we did the system. We actually are revisiting this right now because for the first time, Clay County has a marine boat, an actual fireboat. So we've never had that type in our system. So we're building out a new type. We're going to be building out a specific module with inspection questions related to a fireboat that are not related to other fire apparatus. Vehicle items. This is the area that breaks out the different modules I'm going to show you in the field app. Everything from documentation, lights, surface, pump, ladder, equipment. Those are the areas. And within each of the areas is where we build out the individual inspection questions. And then we go further to say which of these apply to which vehicle types. I'll give you the example. The one you see there on the screen, documentation, ALS license, that's the paramedic license. All apparatus in the state of Florida have to be licensed if you're going to have paramedic level equipment. In Clay County, that's just our engines, ladders, and rescues. So the tender vehicle type never sees that question in their inspection because it doesn't apply to them. So the way that we built this out with the standard logic tree, parent, child, grandchild, we can expand and contract the application on the fly. Unit management, this is where they're able to come in and add, delete, put units in and out of service. Also track what type they are, whether or not the unit status is P for primary, a frontline, or S for spare, what station that particular apparatus is assigned to, what frequency we want them to do the inspection. Is it a frontline and they have to do it daily, or is it a spare and they just have to do it weekly? The software is able to manage that, and then whether the actual unit is active or in service. Vehicle, this is the vehicle side. So pretty much across all governments, they get vehicles in, cop cars, fire engines, public works vehicles, and they get assigned a vehicle ID number. They usually have some kind of schema. Here in Clay County, PS is for public safety, SO is for sheriff's office, IT is obvious, that's for technology. And so it starts with that letter prefix and then a number. And then that vehicle within the fire service, which is unique, gets assigned to a unit. So as you can see here, we'll use the brush truck. Brush truck ACS 10435 is the vehicle ID, but that vehicle is assigned to a particular brush truck. So this here is where the normal assignments are made. Whether it's a new assignment or they change vehicles because they got a different vehicle, this is where they can come in here and say, okay, well, brush 24 is now using ACS 10436. So this is kind of the core where it drives the inspection whenever they're going to go select what unit they're doing the inspection on. This is the normal assignment. And then this here is a troubleshooting screen we built. I'll explain how we also took into account for them whenever they swap vehicles. So if engine 22 is using their regular vehicle and it goes out for maintenance, they're not just out of service, they're given a spare engine to use. So within the system, they can go and say, hey, my regular vehicle is out for maintenance and I'm now going to use this spare. That allows them to now do inspections on that spare vehicle and still retain the disparity, or not the disparity, but the different units, so that it's not just engine 22, but what vehicles were they actually using. So we're actually able to improve efficiencies on even the spare vehicles. You may have spare engine 111 that gets used 3 different times this week at 3 different stations in the county. Well, we were able to determine that we had one particular spare that we needed to leave in the more urban areas. It was not good in the rural areas on the dirt roads. We encountered 32% more maintenance every time we let that spare engine get used at the south end of rural county. This software program allowed us to figure that out. So here's the field vehicle inspection, the one the crews see whenever they sign in to the web or they sign into the app on their phone or device. Starts out telling them at the bottom, confirming who they are, what the version of the app is. The middle of the screen is if for some reason they had a pending inspection. You would say, well, why would they have that? Well, they're in the middle of doing an inspection. A call comes in, they have to stop, go on the call, and come back and pick it up where they left off. This is where they would go to see to resume that started inspection. So from here, they're going to click the new inspection swap button, and it's going to do another confirmation. We had to do this because we have in those units where they're using the same tablet. Sometimes we've even encountered at shift change where someone was using the tablet to do an inspection on one vehicle, got a call, put it down, and now the regular engineer comes out and grabs it, and they were doing an inspection under the other person's user. They didn't see on that first screen, we're human. Sometimes we just kind of, our eyes scan through things. So we forced them to confirm who they were, that they were about to start this inspection. Now it takes them to the type screen. We're not connected to our staffing application. That's something they've asked us to look at, not in 2027, because they're in the middle of switching staffing applications, but they would like for the staffing application to tell the vehicle inspection application that Ken Devin is riding on engine 1 today. So that when I log in to go do an inspection, it immediately opens the engine 1 inspection. Because we're not connected to staffing, they have to come here first, pick the type, and then pick the vehicle within the type. For this purpose here, I did I have my test ones in my utility section. So I'm going to do an inspection on utility test 1. You'll see here we've got the unit ID and the vehicle ID underneath it. That's just to help them make sure they're doing the correct inspection on the correct unit and the correct vehicle. Once I select utility test 1 at the bottom, it shows me you're about to do it on this unit. Here's the current assignment, and then here's the normal assignment. When I show you the swap at the end of the presentation, you'll see where that's different when they've actually swapped into another unit. The first screen they come to, this has always been our biggest one. This is where we get some more mileage accuracy. Now, we did have to put some latitudes in here, but we didn't want the same latitudes as the old public works system that forced them, to put in bad information. So we were able to determine what the average mileage is per vehicle type, per vehicle in the county. So even if someone was to come in here and let's say that the guy that did or the gal that did this yesterday, the mileage wasn't really 18. Let's say that the mileage was actually only 15, but they put in 18. If I come in here and I want to put 15, it's going to prompt me, hey, you're about to enter a mileage that less that was documented yesterday. Are you sure you want to do that? So it will allow me to correct it, but it also will give me that check and balance. The same thing going forward, even on some of the paper ones, they would do an inspection, they'd forget to look at the mileage, so they just go, oh, let's see, it was this, or it was this yesterday, so I'll add 50 miles. And so that also created bad mileages. This one here, we know that a typical engine in the county doesn't go more than 100 miles a day. So if I tried to enter 190 right now, it's going to warn me and say, hey, you're about to enter a mileage that's more than the normal. Are you sure this is correct? And give me a check and balance. So we've improved our mileage documentation. Now we're going to step through all of those different sections that I showed you. This one here is a documentation section. You can see we've got where they can document whether it's not applicable or okay. Once I've documented not applicable, it will stay that way. So at the very beginning, when they did this for the first time, they marked all the ones that don't apply, and that stays and holds through to every inspection. So they don't have to come through and click NA every single inspection. It does retain that. The same thing with what was done previously. You can see here at the bottom, it's telling me that any data that I see on the screen already was from an inspection done November 26, 2024. So it tells you what that previous information was. So if I see something that's not right, like, well, that's not broke, or that's been broke, why did they put it that way? It at least gives me an explanation why. You also see the immediate and immediate safety. Those are the ones I was talking about earlier that actually trigger email notifications out from the system to a list that we give that as they're finishing the inspection can let those people know that, hey, we're about to get a call. This unit's about to go out of service. We need to get a spare for them. Or we need to get a mechanic over there right away to take care of it because we can fix it quicker than they can swap out. So this just steps through the different sections. I won't go through each individual one. You'll actually see here, this one here is showing some work that we're already doing on that maintenance, the mechanic version, where they can document that I repaired it on this particular date and time, put a note in, and it's going to force the inspector that does the follow-up inspection to mark it okay and acknowledge that they saw the repair was done. So this is just some work we're already doing on a future release. Different sections for your standard vehicle, visual, tires, everything you can think about that you would have to inspect on a public safety type vehicle. Even the law enforcement is very similar because the whole premise behind doing such a detailed inspection is these are vehicles who are typically responding lights and siren above normal speed. So you don't want something missed on one of these things that keeps them from braking, keeps them from steering appropriately and avoiding an accident. These are the specialty modules that we did for those apparatus that have a pump and booster tank. We have a section for that. For those apparatus that have the breathing apparatus, the self-contained breathing apparatus, and the spare bottles, they get that module. If it's an apparatus that carries specialty power tools like generators and exhaust fans, chainsaws, they get that module. And then we have a ladder specific module. I mentioned at the beginning, the county just is putting in service their first fireboat, like I'm sure you've seen in some of the bigger cities like New York and Chicago. We're in the process of building out a marine boat inspection module that boat will have to do also. Obviously, they won't have the ladder one. They don't have a ladder truck. So once they've made it through all the different modules, they come to that second to the last screen, which is the preview inspection. And this is where it takes all the answers they provided on the 15 previous modules, 100 some odd questions, and puts them on one screen where they're required to just scroll through and make sure all the answers that they've given are correct. So it's their one last chance to make sure it's accurate. If it's not, they can click edit and go back and fix one, or they can click complete. And then the last screen they've got is something that we have to do here in the state of Florida. I'm sure other states do too, but we have both a Florida statute and a county ordinance that requires a legal attestation of that vehicle operator that everything that they are about to submit is true. So there's two different ways we could have done this. When we originally developed it, they wanted them to just sign the screen. They do have a ticket in for us. They'd like to change that to an electronic signature, so we'll be looking at that this year also. Okay, I also talked in the beginning about the swap. You saw that button at the very beginning when they did a new inspection. There was one called swap. This is where they would come to swap out for whatever reason. In this example, utility test 1, whose normal vehicle is ABC 1111, is going to go for an unplanned repair. Whenever I click that unplanned repair, you see it populates there at the bottom for me to pick what spare am I swapping into. Now, here's where we took it to another level. This list is driven by vehicle type and spare status. So, for example, engine 1 couldn't swap into engine 2 if engine 2 is a primary frontline vehicle. It only shows them spare engines that are available to swap into. So if that spare is out of service being worked on, if it's being used by somebody else, if it's a primary, it's not going to show in this list. So it gives us a more accurate representation of what they're actually swapping into. I'm going to select ABC 222 because this is a spare. It's going to make me confirm that I'm doing the right one. And then here you can see we're now utility test 1. Its vehicle is ABC 222. I've swapped into the spare there on the left. And because I'm using ABC 222, the unit utility test 2 has automatically been put out of service because it doesn't have a vehicle right now. When this is all done, I get my regular vehicle back. I come in here to the same process, click swap. There's a selection that says return to regular vehicle. It gives me my regular vehicle back and takes that spare and puts it back into that other unit. So that was everything with the field and the admin inspection application. They asked me to just hit on a couple of the other things that we've done since 2018. 2020 in code was a real big power app year, 20 and 2021 for us. We built a COVID project tracking application and a rental and utility assistance application for our grants division and our community services division because they received over 5,000 applications from citizens and businesses to get some of the federal COVID money and ARPA money that was out there. And we had to find a way to allow those applications to come in electronically, along with sometimes hundreds of pages of supporting documents. And PowerApps allowed us to do that. That was probably our first big Dynamics side. The vehicle inspection one we actually did on an Azure SQL backend. The future one we're actually working on right now. We're in year 2 of the county strategic plan, their first 5-year strategic plan. Whenever they developed it, the crew that was working on it at the time elected to use a Microsoft form for the data collection. It's good, but it's just not a very efficient tool to use. It doesn't dump it into a database. They have to manually manipulate it in Excel Online. It doesn't provide a very good level of data masking. So if I'm just asking you for a percentage and you felt like giving me a novel, you could type out a novel as an answer. That doesn't work very well. So they were spending literally 8 to 24 hours a month manually wrangling that data and getting it into analytics. We're building them out an application that is not only going to force the user to put in only what we want, only show the user the questions that apply to them, but allow us to build out Power BI analytics on the back end and save them 24 hours a month. So with that, that's what I've got. Ryan, back to you, and I'm available for any questions.
You're setting yourself up, buddy. I was not aware you're going to throw in that last slide with the other, power platform use cases that you have developed. In fact, somebody in the chat said, "Hey, would love to see what you built for the utility assist or rental utility assistance." So don't need to dive into that right now. Perhaps Mallory, you can reach out. I'm happy to make any introduction in the background. But Jared had 3 questions in the row in the chat that I think are actually quite valuable. Some of it I think we touched on right at the very beginning is tell us about your staff resource who built this and their background in development. That was you, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
me, and we're still kind of growing into that. I'm now a dedicated Power BI developer. I've just in this past year been divested of all those other responsibilities. I work strictly for the county manager now and the CIO and the CDO doing just Power App and Power BI development. But that's not how it started. I was managing 15 software applications. I was technically the 6th admin chief for the department. And we were just getting into Power BI and Power Apps. So we've had, and I know, the only way to efficiently do that was to find a partner. And we're fortunate that we have a partner that we've worked with here locally to do that, to help mentor us and do that kind of work. But
and I think about just the ease of use of Power Platform, right? Obviously, technology will have some challenges. This is not meant to sound salesy, but I mean, I'm an ex-cop, and I went in 2014 from cop land into Microsoft world, and have only been playing with the Power Platform for just a few short years. So my claim to fame is, hey, if an ex-cop can do it, yeah, y'all can do it too. But now I also get cool tools like Copilot to help build inside of, whether it's Power Automate or Power Platform or Power Apps. Jared's second question is, are you using offline functionality in the inspection app? And if yes, have you run into any issues using offline?
No, we're not using offline functionality, and that's primarily because the main place they're doing these inspections is on the front bay of the fire station, which has county Wi-Fi. But
Gotcha.
even if it didn't, every one of the apparatus in Clay County has a cellular device in it that also broadcasts a Wi-Fi circle around the apparatus. So you just about can't go anywhere in the fire service in Clay and not have a connection to the county.
No doubt. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, they do that on purpose because the patient care software, the fire software, they can be standing 300 yards from the apparatus, and they still need that 911 connectivity back to the center.
And things have really progressed since I've been in EMS. And Jared's last question is: you built the admin module as a Canvas app. Did you ever consider using a model-driven app?
At the beginning, we didn't, and we really evolved a lot. So some of the hurdles we ran into back in 2018, the county was a 100% on-prem shop. We had 0 in the cloud. PowerApps Gov tenant did not support on-prem. So we were thrust in 2018 into the cloud for that. So at the time, the shop that we were working with just they felt it would be better that we did a Canvas app for that. Today, we are obviously making decisions differently. We've got Azure Cloud, we've got Dynamics, and there is some on-prem support, but a lot of our apps that we were using that were on-prem, they're now cloud. So, but no, at the time we didn't consider a model driven.
And the last part of what you showed, the swap part of it, and I can't speak for anyone else or if there's different agencies on our call today, but I remember being in law enforcement, and we had our assigned squad cars that would be out for maintenance, and we wouldn't discover they were out for maintenance until after shift briefing, as we're carrying our duty bags out and placing it in there. The worst case scenario is then when I get into my assigned squad car and there's a complete mess on the inside because the prior cop left their meal, the wrappers, and everything else on the floor. It would be nice to know who to go back to and thank for that personal gesture. So it sounds like this app, I would actually be able to go back in some way, shape, or form and find out who used perhaps maybe my squad car as a spare because theirs may have been out of service.
In our side of that profession, it's who was the engineer or driver operator that did the inspection. Now, from within the application, if I'm doing an inspection today, yes, I can see who did the one yesterday. But we've also got, I want to say, 12 different SSRS reports built out that some of them are automated, some are ad hoc, that let the supervisors, the administrators, the mechanics, whomever, have real-time, access literally to it.
Yeah.
We've got one supervisor out there who really insists on them being done well before 10 a.m. So he doesn't wait on the email to get to him. He's literally, refreshing the report while he's doing staffing, because he knows, that there's no reason that the camp landing unit shouldn't have everything done by 8:30. They don't have nothing else to do.
SQL Server Reporting Services, SSRS. So thanks for bringing that back up. I think there's Power Automates that could also be and
Well,
other
so
types of
that's
flows. Yep.
well, I mean, and that could be a whole nother session. So
Yeah.
we have just now upgraded to a Power BI premium shop
Oh,
because
wow.
paginated reports is not available on the government. It wasn't available on the government tenant until January.
Yep.
So we've been forced to stay in legacy SSRS, not by choice, but
Yep.
by Microsoft.
Yep. Any other questions? You are able to come off mute. My preference would be, hey, raise a hand, I'll call on you type of thing. The hand raise is on the top bar of the Teams menu where it says raise. So if you have a question you want to ask live, we do have a few minutes where we could take a live question, or if you feel more comfortable, please go ahead, type it into the chat. Oh, my guy, DeAndre, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How you been?
Good, good. I was hoping I'd have something that I could show you guys later on in the year, but it's been put on hold, so maybe
Oh
later
no.
on we'll get something.
Oh, we'll get
Uh,
there.
yeah. But did you guys do any Java coding or JavaScript in any of your stuff? I always ask this when I come to these meetings just to see if some people are using that. And if so, was it hard to implement?
No, so yeah, that is one of the unique things that it's not all about low code when you're doing applications like this. There is a considerable amount of Java that is running some of the intricacies, particularly the swap and the swap back. So you're dealing with humans using software. If I go to pick a spare and I pick the wrong one, well, I need to be able to undo that and redo it all without having to start all over from scratch. So there's no way that low code and DAX and stuff can handle that. So Java handles that. There is still quite a bit of stored procedure work in this application also, just to run some of the intricacies. But fortunately, PowerApps allows you to do that. So I'd probably say 90% of it is low code and 10% is not.
Thank you. Because I'm trying to get my developers here in my agency to kind of buy in, and they're a strictly JavaScript shop. And so I'm like, you can still use that in here,
Yes.
Yep.
So whenever I come to these meetings, I ask that so I can go back and say, you can still do Java. We still need it in some instances because it can't do everything. So please come join me to do something great. So thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
I
And
like how
Ryan, I
you're.
know one of the things, we've got that partnership that we do. And the only reason I mentioned the partnership is, like, for example, in Florida, the city of Miami is using this application. They didn't build it, but they used it through our mentor partner. Now they've gone on since they've made themselves now a PowerApps shop, and they've had and worked and developed two apps specific to them. but they immediately got off the ground by using a pre-built application. So, you know, even the food bank, I know as they were delving into the food bank during COVID, the partner came to him and said, hey, listen, we'll do this for free if you're okay, because we've got all these other counties in Florida that want to use it. We're going, absolutely, we need them to use it. We need to make this as best as possible for the citizens. So there's a bigger picture to it, even when you're dealing with your mentor partners.
Love it. Looking for other hands to be raised. Don't be shy.
While we waiting, Ryan, I just wanted to just tell Kenneth this is really awesome. And right before DeAndre comes back on, the other thing that you just mentioned about the ability to really scale and be able to share these solutions with others is really profound as well. So you can really not only move faster from the initial development standpoint, but even extending this to other use cases for other users that could leverage it. So that's awesome. Yes.
Well, I can only speak for Florida government because that's where I develop under, but we can't sell the vehicle inspection application.
Yeah.
We're a local government. So
absolutely,
the whole thing is about, sharing. So, and like I said, that really shined during COVID. I mean, we used the food bank application like you would not believe, but so did about 50 other agencies across.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to hijack. Sorry, DeAndre. I think about not only, and also Kenneth, in the chat, can you double check the URL that's up there for the Australian group to make sure that was the accurate one? We did have an ask for, hey, who are you talking with out in Australia? But as I, pivot back a little bit is, not only can you share that application, but also its overall impact is, it's much greater, right? Because not one person should be able to profit off of this because we're sharing ideas, and that's what this entire platform of DUG4GOV is about, is ideas worth sharing. Part of our tech series that our enterprise folks have. If you haven't signed up to be part of the tech series, there are folks from our enterprise organizational unit that have built out really cool things. Well, we don't sell the idea of what we call EV or Iris or other types of things. It's not a product you can just, go buy, but we'll show you how it's built. And there's lots of information out on GitHub from these enterprise resources to go out and recreate some of these things that your agencies may be asking of you. So I love venues like this because it kind of removes, us as Microsoft from being all constantly in sales motions, but allows at least peers to be able to talk of like, hey, this is what we built, this is how we built it, and it sparks another idea of like, yeah, well, we could recreate that too and add our own flavor based off of these use cases. And that's where that sum of being able to share is so impactful. DeAndre, go ahead.
Yeah. So, how hard was it for your upper management to get on board? And like one of the things I'm having right now is they're like, oh, we got to put some rails around this because we don't want this getting out of hand and turn into another access database fiasco in our environment. Did you guys I know you said you had to rush and get some things done, but you guys, before that happened, start putting guide rails around it so that you didn't have like the wild, wild west with different power apps and things being created, and you're able to maintain some type of control?
So I think our introduction into it actually came reverse. We had a lot of canned software out there. We had a couple of pieces that were internally written, VB and C# and things like that. And the mentor group that I was talking about, the CEO of that group was already working with county officials and the county commissioners and our CIO on a bunch of different philanthropy projects not related to this. And our CIO was very versed in Microsoft and GIS and all kinds of things. And so it came from the top down. he actually set up a meeting with me and the CEO and himself to decide how we wanted to make Clay County a Power Apps and Power BI shop. I think his big push initially was the analytics portion of it, but there was already an urgent need in public safety. They were having some issues with fire apparatus maintenance and repair, fire apparatus accident, possibly related to maintenance and repair. And so they were trying to find a software solution for that. And at the time, there really wasn't a good one out there that was cost efficient for our size county. And that was an open door for us to kind of get into this. So it kind of happened to the reverse because of the fact that I'm the only person who develops Power Apps and Power BI for the past 7 years in the county, and it's still that way. The only growth that we've had is instead of me having 15 things and this, now I just have this. We've not really had the issue that I've heard other counties and cities with having to put some boundaries to assure that it doesn't come off the rails. So it's a very real issue. I hear what you're saying. We're just not to that point yet. We're still at a growth period where we actually need more because everything else is not cost efficient for our local government.
Thank you very much.
Fair. Thank you.
Now I did look at that link. That isn't the link to the group that I'm a part of. Ryan, offline when we finish here, I will send you when I find it the link to the group that I'm a part of and let you share it appropriately.
Will do. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join. Join us next month. Ernest, do you want to give a little teaser of what's coming up next month?
Yeah, so we have the city of San Francisco. They're going to be on with us, and we will be jumping into multiple use cases that they are going to highlight and really showing the endless number of use cases that the platform can be leveraged for. You'll see that in your upcoming newsletter that's coming out. And so we really implore you, we really would love to have you all back because again, they're going to share the 3 use cases showing how it saved them time, resources, and also showing the impact that it's having in their business. So looking forward to the upcoming event.
Thank you, Kenneth. Great presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice meeting everyone.
Nice meeting you too.
Nice
Thank you,
meeting you.
Melissa. Thank you, Kenneth. Take care, everyone. Join us next month.